Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. We'd like to welcome you to day 2 of ECI's Ethics Ambassadors Academy. My name is Nadine Ferlazzo, and I'm the Manager of Strategic Partnerships and Initiatives here at ECI. Welcome. Yesterday, we talked with ethics and compliance leaders and program managers from around the globe about the critical role that you all play as ethics ambassadors within your organizations. Today, our programming is going to focus specifically on your role within your organization. Our sessions today will leave you with tools, resources, and a network of peers that will empower you to collaborate with your leadership to promote integrity and create a speak-up culture within your organization. Please know that this is meant to be an interactive conversation. Be sure to ask questions by dropping them in the chat. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Broadcat and Compliance Line, for making this programming possible. Let's go ahead and dive right into session 2. Hemma, I'll let you kick off our first session.
Thank you, Nadine, and welcome everyone to day 2. I'm thrilled to be here. We had a really packed session, set of sessions yesterday, and I'm really glad to be spending some time with the ambassadors today. So I'm going to be talking about compliance leadership. I'll share my screen in a second. And what we'll do over the next 30 minutes or so is get into a couple of stories. Firstly, a little bit about why and how I came into compliance. Secondly, we're running a pilot at Snapping, which is where I work, so I'll talk a bit about that. And then we're going to get you involved for a first an early morning exercise. We're going to have you and some of our panel participants participate in an interactive workshop. So we'll get to that. So without further ado, let me share my screen and we'll get stuck in with the stories. So you can relax for about 10 minutes while I tell you a little bit about myself and how I got here and our experience with the pilot program. So I'm Hemma Lomax. I work in the integrity and compliance team at Snap Inc. of Snapchat fame. Hence, you're going to see a number of Bitmoji in our presentation to stay on brand. We're going to talk today, as I said, about compliance leadership. It's entitled Bridging the Gap, and we'll get to why that is in a second in the art of co-creation. It occurred to me yesterday that one thing that the compliance program managers are showing is compliance leadership when they set up and design a compliance ambassador program. But also in turn, the ambassadors are showing significant compliance leadership and what they can do with the business partners. And so we wanted to look at, in the design and ongoing enhancement of these programs, how you can bridge the gap between the compliance function and the business partners using the ambassadors and their leadership. Now, I promise you a quick story about how I got into compliance. I can probably tell I'm British, so I started my legal career in the UK as a wig-wearing barrister. I should have brought the wig to put it on for you. And I also did a PhD on the laws of war, breaking the cycles of vengeance and internal armed conflict. I was a very passionate young lawyer wanting to save the world. I looked at criminal responsibility and government responsibility. And long story short, I learned that corporations rule the world, follow the money. And some of the biggest problems can be solved by corporations. And that's how I decided then to really focus on corporate responsibility. I moved to the US to work for the Securities and Exchange Commission. There's a bit of an echo there. And I was prosecuting corruption and fraud for about 10 years in DC before I moved to think about working in big brands that might have the resources and the will to do something about some of these big problems. So I moved from the SEC to Disney in Los Angeles, and then I left Disney's compliance to join Snap. So 2 big brands that care about the world, and I was fascinated to see what they could do with these resources. Then I was asked, as part of my role here, to think about how I can scale our impact, a small team wanting to do big things. And of course, the idea of an ethics ambassador program was surfaced. So I was asked, and this is a story in terms of my reflections on my beginnings as a compliance manager, I was asked to design a program. So I'm going to share with you the next slide to show you one piece of the original design of the program. I very merrily got on my way and started making a big list of all the things I thought a compliance ethics ambassador could do for us. And I will say, those of you that are ambassadors in the room might look at this and say, nice, bright ideas, but gosh, I have a day job, Hemma. How am I going to do all of that? Those of you that are program managers or in a compliance function might think, well, those are really our jobs. And how are we going to make the ambassadors do all that at scale for us? I'll tell you, for our program, what we were really focused on was international growth. And so we wanted to make sure we expanded our impact and our reach regionally in the various regions and markets we operate in. And I knew that with a small team, I couldn't do it alone. So I wanted to do it with the ambassadors. That said, I was designing a program on my own in the team, just speaking to my own team, little echo chamber with all these great ideas. But there was something missing in my great big, but you can guess what that was. I wasn't really speaking to any ambassadors or potential ambassadors. I did some benchmarking with my peers and other wonderful companies, but I wasn't really getting the input from the ambassadors. And I'll tell you, as an onboarding training, a kind of recruitment session, I think I might have overwhelmed our ambassadors. They were very keen to help, great corporate citizens. And they looked at me and said, how many hours a week do you want me to work on this? And you see, I was asking big things. So then I thought to myself, look, what is it we're trying to do here? I asked myself the question, what's the brand statement for our ambassador? What's the unmet need that we're really trying to fill? So I had to go back and say, thinking about my saving the world ideas, what I was thinking about there, what I learned most was you've got good people, you've got bad actors, and then you've got good people who allow bad actions to happen. And put another way, the compliance function is there to stop that risk of good people allowing bad actors. So risk management, okay, risk management is the unmet need. I wasn't able to do that all myself, sitting here in Santa Monica, when we've got a business around the world. So we wanted to find a way to scale our impact as a compliance function, number one. But then I thought, well, what's the brand statement? What happens with the actual compliance ambassadors and what can they do for us? So we were looking at risk management at scale, but we also knew that what was missing? What was it that was missing that we couldn't do ourselves apart from resources? And how could we fill that gap? So then we decided to think a little bit more about how we were approaching the program. I'm going to go to the next slide and talk to you a little bit about that. There's this beautiful phrase, tell me and I'll forget, teach me and I'll remember, involve me and I'll learn. I think that was Benjamin Franklin, or it's attributed to Benjamin Franklin. Wikipedia also suggests it's a Chinese proverb that he used, who knows? But we decided to put that into play. We thought, look, we are going to communicate and ask the compliance ambassadors to do certain things. We're going to put them through training. We had some great discussions yesterday about how you can do that effectively. But how about thinking about how we can involve them in the co-creation of this program? And what does that look like? And you can see on the right-hand side, I've got some post-its, so I'm going to show you those right now. You can see that involving them meant we had to interact with them and engage with them early. We'd have to listen with intent. I'm going to move my head because I can't see it. I have to ask coaching questions, and we'd have to really leverage their strength. And so we looked for ways that we could do this. And so today, I'm going to be talking to you about one way that we used. It's a very practical way. It involves, I'm just going back to presentation mode. It involves interaction at scale with compliance ambassadors, so between compliance program managers and compliance ambassadors. And with that, I'm going to actually take you through the exercise myself. So let's talk about Miro. I do not represent Miro, but Miro is an online virtual collaboration tool that we were able to leverage for this purpose, to make sure we showed and put our money where our mouth is in terms of listening, engaging, asking coaching questions, and interacting so that we could co-creatively design. And before I go into the Miro exercise with you and show you how to do this, I wanted just to give a bit of credit. I attended an ECI event, ethics and compliance event with Ernie Broughton and Karsten Tams, where I was asked to participate in this unknown exercise. I never used it before. And they are the ones that taught me that this tool was available. Ernie taught me about how we should leverage the strengths of our ambassadors. Karsten Tams, who I think was here yesterday, he may be in the audience now, talks a lot about design and co-creation. I was very inspired by him. So these are not my ideas. This is just LinkedIn and meeting friends for these sorts of institutes and then putting them into action. So let's do this. Let's get into how we collaborated to co-create using Miro. Now, good news, I've got some people prepped and ready to do this exercise with me, but I also figured out a way, I hope, for others to join in the audience. And so this is not required. This is totally optional. If you would like to, I've put a link in the chat. You can click on that link and you will be able to see some options for signing in. You'll get something like this if you're on a computer. You do not have to do this, and there is no cost to doing this if you want to do this, but you will need to provide an email address if you'd like to participate. So you can sign up with your email, sign up with Google. You may get this sign, again, free plan if you like to, completely optional. If you do this, you'll be able to participate today, but no need to do it otherwise. If you're on your phone, you may get a magic link option. Put your email in, get the magic link. And then we're going to go into a quick tutorial for those of you that can get in. So again, use the chat if you need to, but don't worry at all if you can't get in. We've got a number of people ready and prepped to go, but I want to show you how we can do this exercise together. All right, so for those of you that are in or can get in, moving on the whiteboard is pretty intuitive. Just make sure you select the tool on the pointer that allows you to on the far left. I'll show you that right now. You can see on my screen, far left over here, there's a select tool. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to tell you how to zoom in and out. Pretty intuitive, use your mouse, wheel, pinch. There's a plus and minus in the bottom right that you can use. And a plus and minus also on your keyboard. And then we're going to get into practice. So I'm going to stop the presentation here. And you can see there's a number of people on the board. Can you see those cursors flying around? Now, the beauty of Miro is if you wanted to make this anonymous, I can turn those cursors off. I click up here on the top right, and I don't know who's writing what. But for now, because it's fun, we're going to leave you on so you can see where you are on the board. Now, I'm going to invite for a quick warm-up and a quick practice for any that's made their way onto the board. We've got about 15 people on the board right now to do this stickies exercise. A sticky is a virtual post-it. You can see them in color. Please take a sticky from either the middle of the screen or the left of the screen. You can also pull some over from over here, sticky notes, and write in countries you visited and countries you'd like to visit. 2 minutes just to get you warmed up and get you started. And I'm going to show you some functionality as the participants are doing that. About 17 people in now. If you make a big post-it, don't worry, I can make it small. The beautiful thing about this is you can see I've invited anyone in the room to join, number one. Number two, everyone in the room can participate, whether anonymously or not. Number three, I don't have to go around the room and ask you all which countries you'd like to visit and take an hour. I can get your answers in 2 minutes and move on. Number three, I now want to think about, let's talk about certain continents. I can now, as you're working, start organizing these into continents. Australia, Vietnam, lots of Europe over here, Germany, Bahamas, I like that, Spain, I'm going to the Bahamas next week, Asia. Very quickly, as you're working, I'm not stopping you, I can start prioritizing what we might speak about in this meeting. If most of you want to go to Europe, maybe that's where I'll focus my next meeting. Or most of you have been to Europe, we're visited. Of course, here we are at the bottom, places you want to go. Puerto Rico, Egypt, lovely. Nigeria, yes, I want to go to Nigeria. Ireland, India, Thailand. Carlos is writing something. Emily's writing something. Let's put Korea here. I don't want to belabor the point. It looks like you were all very quickly working on it. It didn't take you seconds. And you can see what I can do with the function. So let's do this. Is there a question or something? Okay, now you can all pause on that exercise because I'm going to take you to the next exercise. Let me explain to you a little bit where this came from. As I do that, I'm going to invite any of you to start answering the questions ahead of me. You don't need to wait for me to tell you what to do because it's pretty straightforward. But let me explain what we're doing here. So I mentioned at the beginning, we were looking for a brand statement for ambassadors, the why, what's the unmet need? And again, why do that sitting on my own in my office in Los Angeles when I can actually collaborate with the potential champions, or we call them champions now, they're ambassadors, themselves? Why not ask them what the unmet need is? What's the gap? And I learned this exercise actually from a politician. I was doing a leadership course with some politicians, and there was a gentleman that was running for office, and he said, my opponent says all this, and I say all this, and I need a campaign statement that works for my constituents. So what I did was this grid. I forget the name of it. There's a term of art, but put this grid together. He asked himself, what do I say about my opponent? What does my opponent say about me? And vice versa. And it was very powerful. It allowed him to bridge the gap between him and his opponent and his constituents and come up with a brand statement that worked well for him. By the way, he was running for a local school district. His brand statement that he got from this exercise was kids first for a change. It was genius, but he only got that because he did this exercise. So I thought, why don't we apply that to these compliance ambassadors? And so I'm going to invite you now, again, anyone that's on the board, leave the country exercise and come to the next slide, the bridging the gap exercise. Feel free to start dragging some slides and putting your thoughts on here. Now, again, the beauty of this collaborative exercise is free thinking. You don't have to be embarrassed. Go for quantity, not quality. Don't overthink your answers. We're really just trying to brainstorm here quickly and efficiently. I've said 6 minutes for this exercise, partly because I want to talk to you a bit while we do it, but you can do this very, very quickly. If you're an ambassador, you'll probably be really well placed to tell us what the business thinks of us. When I say us, I'm talking about the ethics team, the ethics and compliance function. Same, if you're in the ethics and compliance function, you'll have a pretty good idea of your perceptions and your team's perceptions towards your business. I love the bottom 2 grids, because there we're asking you what you think of yourself. You may think that you're ethics leaders and champions. You may think that you're excellent communicators, but then we hear from the business that honestly, your policies are too long. Things like that, which really help. One, build trust, right? This exercise built a lot of trust because we were asking the right questions, coaching questions. Tell us what we can do better. Also, we're bridging the gap. Oh, we think our 3-page policy is wonderful compared to our 7, but you want a 1-page nudge. How can we get closer to bridging that gap? Now, I'm going to pause for a second and ask some of our panelist participants to feel free to go off mute and tell us how you're finding this exercise and your reflections.
I love this exercise. It's such a quick way to kind of start to crowdsource things. And the thing that really struck me in your introduction, Hemma, was how you were talking about risk management at scale. And we call that kind of crowdsourcing risk management. And a big thing from yesterday that I just kept hearing over and over and over again was you have to get folks involved, you know? And what better way to start to introduce this topic to folks that might be part of this program than by getting them involved from that launch, like getting that campaign slogan before the campaign is launched, you know, kind of copying that over to this type of a program. It really, I think it probably energizes folks and makes them feel that sense of ownership that's probably critical for a program like this to really take root.
Thank you, Nick. I see a few hands up. Let me take LV quickly and then Jennifer, please.
Hi, good morning. So yeah, I agree. I love this exercise mainly because it's very inclusive and it allows everyone to kind of give their feedback at the same time, right? So you don't feel like you're speaking over someone. We're all able to collaborate at the same time and kind of read and be like in line without having to interrupt anyone.
Thank you, Elvie. I have to say, I'm one of the biggest offenders. I'm a talker. I'll be talking in a meeting. I actually read a very sad survey the other day that said when women interrupt, they interrupt women. So on top, we're interrupting each other. You know, we're double disadvantaged. So yeah, what better way to get everyone in the room participating? And as I say, right now you can see names, but look, I can turn it off. You don't need to say who it is that's saying what. We just get the information on the board, which I think is super powerful, super powerful. Jennifer, please. Thank you, Elvie.
Yeah, you know, Hemma, I thought the thing that I really noticed jumping in on this morning, you know, we had a chance this morning to play around a little bit. So I'll be honest, I got a little bit of a head start and got my bearings going. But look how many folks joined in and how quickly they picked it up. I think that is just a real testament to how easy this is, how fast it can be. And as we all know, our ambassadors and our compliance teams don't have a ton of time. So you can do something like this in a very short period of time and get so many bits of info or direction that you're looking for. I love that.
Thank you, Jennifer. And look, scaling is the big problem. And right now we're doing in Snap, we're doing a pilot in our Middle East region, but somehow we're going to have to get the rest of our regions involved as well. I know we can have compliance committee quarterly, but it's another meeting, isn't it? A regional one, and then a global one, and then a behind the scenes one. This way, you can actually have 4 of these exercises going on exactly the same time in the same board, in breakout rooms or not, with all of your regions. You can say, okay, Middle East, go to this board. EMEA, go to this board. LATAM, go to this board. Go. And you can get that information. I'm informed, though I haven't figured it out yet, but you can turn these post-its into documented information. So you can leverage the post-its and get them into a spreadsheet if you need to and organize later. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. You can see again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but as I told you, there's a couple of things that we can do. We can quickly, because there will be repetition. 2 people will have the same idea. 5 people will write the same post-it. That's okay, because what you want to be able to do is very quickly organize them. So let's say essential, strategic, mitigating risk, business partner, key to essentials again, we'll put that there. And then what I'm going to ask the participants to do now is take a dot, just drag a dot from over on the right-hand side. If there's something you see that you like that you didn't write, put a dot on it while I do some organizing. So grab a dot, just put a dot on anything you like. Police and blocker. Yes, those go together. Sometimes annoying. It's true. We are sometimes annoying. Necessary evil. Pain in the neck. Oh, my heart. Brakes on the car. Oh, brakes. Yes, exactly. I like to say, and Nick's heard me say this before, that we are not the brakes. We are the person on the ground that helps you take off and land safely. The third wheel that gets you going. Most important part of the company, yes, business views themselves as critical, expert, compliant, and ethical. We are the business. Again, you see how quickly, as a facilitator, I can work while, I'm sorry, moving some of them away from your dots, apologies for that, while you are also still participating. And before I move off this board, I wanted to show you a few other things. You can do very many other things on this board. I've asked you to do specific things, but if you're in a meeting and you want to make a comment, again, Hemma's not stopping for a break to let you speak. You can go ahead and do that straight in the board, right? Comment here. Hemma, slow down. If you love what I'm doing, you can get a sticker and emoji and you can say, thank you. There we go. Again, play around in this in your own time. There's a ton of things you can do. There's vote buttons. There's a whole bunch of things. You can put videos on these screens. I don't want to go on too far. What I'm going to do now, if I may, is I'm going to show you a couple more examples. Sorry. These are your answers. Again, I'm not going to analyze today. Feel free, if you're in the board, this board is yours for a while. I'll close it down in maybe a week, but feel free to look at the board and see if you've learned anything yourself. What I'll show you is, this is not just an exercise today. This is something I did actually do with our ambassadors. I'm going to show you that now. But the next piece I want to go in with, a few minutes I've got left, about 7 minutes left, is how to scale your impact as ambassadors. So you heard Nick saying how, we're scaling our impact as we're crowdsourcing and scaling our impact when it comes to being program managers. But of course, the ambassadors can do these exercises themselves. What power for my ambassador to take this board into a room without me present? When I say to an ambassador, I want you to be a liaison, remember my first ambitious slide? Now there's a tool for them to do this at scale quickly and bring me back the feedback. So I don't actually, Hemma, need to be in the room every time this is done. So I want to think about that, and we're going to talk about peer power a little bit. Let me show you a couple of the exercises we've done. Number one, this is the one I made earlier. So this is another one you can look at, some of the examples we got in our exercise. Here's another one we did. So I told you that we're doing a pilot in the Middle East. I'm an anti-corruption specialist. And so one of the things I was interested in was doing a bit of a risk assessment around big sports and mega events. Those of you that know the World Cup is in Qatar this year. And there's an opportunity, let's say, for risk management when it comes to large mega events. But honestly, my Googling, oh, Italy's in the wrong place. Let me move Italy. Italy should not be there. 1 second. I'll get back to you. This happens sometimes where you get an errant post-it. I shall just slip down there. I didn't want to just Google what events were happening in the region. So if you don't know, Snapchat is a social media type tech company, and really ad sales is one of the things we do. And so we are going to be quite involved in these big events. I wanted to understand very quickly from my ambassadors what's happening in the region that we might be involved in a business sense. And so I put a calendar up, I put a map up for fun, and I asked them, use a post-it to add any type of important local events you're aware of. Very quickly, in 2 minutes, I crowdsourced all the events that they were aware of that they would be working on that week, that year, this year, the rest of the year. I did this as my March quarterly. So just another example of how powerful this can be. And second example I'll take you to, I know you can also see around the board yourselves. Quick pulse survey. I mentioned the word quick, I don't know, QIC, questions, impediments, concerns. So say I wanted to do, again, a mini risk assessment on how the team's feeling. How's the Middle East team feeling, or how's a specific department feeling when it comes to compliance culture? I can very quickly ask them to fill out something like this. Questions, impediments, concerns. Allow me to say that these are designed by you. There are templates, but you can also design them. So if you've got other things you want to find out quickly, you just change the questions. Again, ask coaching questions, I would say, questions where you're not giving the answer, but you're really trying to listen intently. So people would fill out questions they've got for us about, Hemma, if I understand the gifting limit correctly, would be a question. Impediments, you know what? Our targets are really tough this year in a downturn. I'm finding it hard to worry about compliance. concerns. Oh, I'm not sure all the conflicts of interest are being disclosed. These are great things to hear that you might get through your hotline. You might get through your compliance website. You might get through your compliance email address, or you might just anonymously in a meeting get this very quickly. It's just another idea for you. And then my last slide before I hand over. Oh, I can't believe I did this in less than 30 minutes. I love Maya Angelou. I love quotes. If you get to know me, I try to turn everything into a quote and make my own. What's compliance leadership? Is really what this goes to. For me, what I've realized, despite all my legal training and my infinite wisdom that I can do things myself, compliance leadership is not trying to do it on my own and not thinking I'm the expert. My expertise, if anything, will be in leveraging the expertise of those around me. And I find that the ambassador program, the concept of an ambassador program, is a beautiful way to do two things: leverage the strengths of the people around you and scale your impact. So if I'm ever going to save the world, I'm not going to do it on my own. We're going to do it by encouraging people to scale their impact. And how? By involving them. Someone mentioned inclusive, making people feel seen, heard, included, valued, respected, appreciated. I'll tell you a story about belonging. So we're doing a risk assessment right now, and I will tell you that we are, in order to scale a risk assessment in the region, we're using Miro. We're actually getting information at scale from the team, and hope to do that globally. One of the things that we said, the leaders said, tone at the top was wonderful. They said, we want people in every country to think they're SNAP first. They're citizens of SNAP first, right? SNAP values, shared values. But when in some of our new offices, you don't feel like you're part of an office because it's remote and we don't have the logos on the wall yet. And there's just there's no identity with SNAP. So we were asking a lot. We were saying, please put your citizenship aside and be a SNAP citizen first. But we weren't really giving them the belonging of the company. So we were asking for shared values, but we weren't making them feel as included as we could. Not saying we weren't doing it, but we weren't doing it as well as we could. That was wonderful feedback, because who knew that maybe jazzing up the SNAP office in a certain remote region might help us with business conduct ethic risk. So this is why I say getting the perspectives of your team can be magical. We all know that. No one on this webinar doesn't know that. But I hope that what we showed you today is there are ways to get that quickly and at speed where people do feel all of these things. Because teaching compliance is hard. Telling people what to do is hard. But involving everyone at risk management, especially those that are in charge of the business opportunities, to think about risk when they think about opportunities, we think is magic. So I've called this the secret to scaling impact for E&C professionals and ambassadors. And with that, I will leave you and hand you back to Melissa.
Hello, it's me again. So before we begin the next section, if I can, I'm going to remove Hemma's spotlight. Sorry, Hemma. And put this on gallery view so I can see everyone. So our next segment of the session is the power of peers understanding their potential in their organizations. One of our presenters, Samuel Fung, unfortunately could not join us. He's in Hong Kong and the time difference was a little bit too great, but he did record his comments because he thought that this was such an important opportunity for to speak as an ambassador. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and share his video. Give me 1 second to make sure I cue it up correctly because we don't want to see the rest of my screen. And here we go.
Hello, my name is Samuel. I'm leading marketing, retail lobby, and digital customer experience here in the Asia Pacific region. I've been working in Starbucks for over 9 years. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with the global leaders in the Seminar for Ethics Ambassador Academy. In my functional leadership role, I'm accountable for creating and developing the marketing campaigns both in-store and out of store, building the digital capabilities to enable and accelerate digital business growth, as well as managing the categories of packaged coffee and merchandise in the retail lobby. I've been serving as Ethics Ambassador role since 2019, and my role is to serve as a resource for strictly confidential advice on any question, concern, or situation that our support center employees are not sure about, or that they do not know where or with whom to share those concerns or questions. What I like most about serving as an ethics ambassador is that it makes me a better person to listen carefully, attentively, and empathetically. I need to be intentionally clear my mind, turn away from any electronic devices, and try to understand the situations. I should not make judgment, nor send any sorts of subtle nonverbal cues that I have an opinion about. All I decide to do is to let the employees open to me and feel that I can be trusted to respect what's been shared. This is an art to be a better listener, and I've been learning this through the role of Ethics Ambassador. Before I share further on our Ethics Ambassador program, let me gain better visibility on the market and business context that I am servicing. My role is based in Hong Kong, whereby Starbucks built a regional support center to support 14 markets and countries in the Asia-Pacific region. As such, our regional support center has more than 250 employees coming from different countries, as we need this diversity to support such a wide variety of markets. Unlike in the US, our region is operating as a licensee model. In other words, the licensees are having the full operating rights to run the daily business in the markets. The Regional Support Center is served as a corporate function to ensure that all of our markets are delivering our brand standards during their executions in the field. In my role as Ethics Ambassador, as a relatively smaller organization, I'm supporting the entire Regional Support Center rather than a specific business unit. Therefore, it requires more of a general approach, yet still a good understanding of how each business unit works together as an integrated whole. Despite it's a Seattle-based company, the Asian culture in our office is very, very strong in the Regional Support Center, which is relatively steeped in hierarchy and deference. Generally, employees are not naturally comfortable speaking up or reporting concerns, and they hardly show any disappointment or disagreement with their managers and superior. With that as a context, now let me share how we have been refocusing and tailoring the program to the Regional Support Center. Initially, the focus of Starbucks Ethics Ambassador program was for ethics ambassadors to be available to employees for confidential guidance on how to navigate and report concerns of misconduct. The program was set up this way because of a concern that there may have been misconduct taking place, but that employees were reluctant to report it and needed another resource for confidential guidance on what to do. However, there were just a few employees came forward in the Regional Support Center. As I shared earlier, this is not the culture in which employees are naturally inclined to report concerns about others and especially about leadership. With this focus on preventing employee misconduct, ethics and compliance was also viewed as a source of negative attention to be avoided, rather than a resource for support. Complicating things further, the COVID-19 pandemic began shortly after I began serving as an ethics ambassador. This resulted in closure of office and less opportunity to connect with employees in the role of ethics ambassador. I had to come up with new ways to engage with employees and gain mass awareness of the Ethics Ambassador program. I spoke about ethics and compliance during the teleconference meetings and sometimes posted messages about ethics during the virtual interactions with our employees. When we were able to return to the office, I placed brochures around the office that described Ethics Ambassador program as a resource to our employees. I also partnered with Ethics and Compliance Director in the office on communications around ethics and compliance, new policies, and our company mission and values. We decided to shift away from a focus on speaking up about misconduct to a more positive focus on ethics in general as one of our company values. In other words, a focus on what employees should do rather than what they shouldn't do. As an example, the Ethics and Compliance Director and I sometimes made co-presentations about ethics at the office's Monday morning coffee tastings. The Monday morning coffee tastings are informal staff meetings in Starbucks and are great opportunities to introduce new resources to our employees. My role as a business leader who wasn't part of ethics and compliance but also partnered with ethics and compliance helped to make ethics as a value and ethics and compliance as a function seem less threatening and less uncomfortable to employees. It's made ethics and compliance feel more of a resource to support our employees and less like a remote ivory tower. It didn't take too long to see a change. Employees began reaching out to me privately for support with concerns. which they had not previously done. At first, I was disappointed because they were not coming to me with concerns related specifically to ethics, but rather more a general HR concerns. However, I quickly realized what a cultural change this represented, as employees had not previously been comfortable using any of their support resources, including HR. So, the shift towards being an ethics ambassador not only began to drive employee engagement with ethics and compliance, but also a knock-on effect of driving engagement with human resources. I was able to serve as a true partner to another support function as well. While there has been great benefits to the individualized approach to the implementation of the program to Regional Support Center, there's also value in emphasizing the market's connection to the broader enterprise. In order to promote the company's mission and values, including ethics, it's important for employees to have a connection to something bigger. Employees need to be able to connect with leaders at the executive level, especially in a culture that values leadership and having a relationship with leadership. To that end, I've worked with the Ethics Ambassador Program Manager to arrange for market-specific messaging from Starbucks Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer in the US. This has been especially important during the pandemic when executives haven't been able to visit markets. For instance, the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer recorded a holiday message to employees in the market for Chinese New Year. We leveraged one of the Monday morning coffee tastings to play the message. This enabled us to deliver messaging about our ethics guidelines regarding gift giving, which is a big part of the holiday and also an area of risk for the company, but also enabled the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer to show up in the market in a culturally relevant way. At the same time, I've also provided feedbacks to the program manager when some of the leadership messaging hasn't been relevant to the market culture. Messaging is not effective when employees do not understand the cultural context. This is a challenge for companies that span global markets. I have been able to serve as a liaison with ethics and compliance and enable the flow of information both ways between the market and ethics and compliance team. So in closing, there's a little about how I have navigated the role of ethics ambassador in my market. It highlights how the role can be tailored to best support a specific market on the basis of its size, its employee population, and its culture, while maintaining a connection with the broader enterprise. It also demonstrates how the ethics ambassador can partner with the business and with other support functions to elevate company ethics and values. Finally, it illustrates how the ethics ambassador role is a truly unique role at the crossroads of the business, ethics and compliance, and other support functions. I hope that it helps to spark the conversation during the rest of this panel discussion. If you would like to reach out to me with questions, feel free to connect with Starbucks Ethics Ambassador Program Manager, Anthony Coburn, who was also the presenter during this academy, and he will put you in touch with me. Thank you. Enjoy the session.
Wow, thank you. I'm going to hand over the reins to Hemma. And let me spot for you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Oh, what a great presentation by Samuel and such great insights as to the power of our peers and the power of our investors. Thank you also, Anthony, for your presentation yesterday, and I'm sure he's available for questions in the comments if you've got any for Starbucks. But we're going to move on from Starbucks now. It's my great pleasure to introduce Sonni Torres and Jacqueline Dorio from Con Edison. So please take it away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Sonni Torres. I work at Con Ed as an asset analyst. I've been with the company about 23 years. I've been a VIA advisor, which is what we call the ethics advisors at Con Ed, values and action advisor, for about 8 years. Jackie?
Good morning, all. I'm Jacqueline Dorio. I'm a senior planning analyst in customer operations at Con Ed. I've been with the company now for 7 years, and I've been a VIA advisor for the past 4. Were you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, great. So it's been great having this role. I serve as liaison for my colleagues on integrity related topics, and I help provide information about available resources to seek advice or share any kind of concern that they may have. And it's a fantastic program.
It is a great program. I've enjoyed it. I was voluntold, but I've enjoyed it so much that I've volunteered to be an advisor to the advisors. Being an advisor, you just you make it your own. You do what your department needs or your group needs. My section is about 450 employees. About 150 are in-house, and then the rest of them are throughout the country. The new ones that come into our office, I meet with them. I like how Hemma ended her presentation. It's how you make them feel. And my goal is to make them feel very comfortable. They can come to me with any questions. And once you open that door where they can come to you with any question, if an ethical issue comes up, they really do feel comfortable talking to you. They trust you. They know that you're going to keep everything confidential. And if there's ever anything that I feel may be iffy, I can speak to my compliance officer that is just a few feet away from me. It's a good working relationship, and I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. I make them feel so respected and valuable. I don't see it as a job. I just take advantage of every opportunity I have in the kitchen, in the elevator, just to open the door and let them know that they can always talk to me.
I mean, that's so powerful. About powers, Jacqueline, can I ask you, there's a question in the chat, what you would say your superpower is in this role?
So I don't think that I really have any superpowers, although I wish I did. I always felt it was important to treat people as I want to be treated. So no matter what your level is at the office, I always felt
Junior, see the license on screen there in the chat box.
And people see that.
Down the bottom. Click on that and do chat.
See that.
Just penalize and see she's looking at it now. Type in and
people
click.
Recognize that, and it actually makes quite a difference. And although you may not have made many interactions with certain people, what does continue is your reputation. So if it's a thing, my superpower is treating people with respect and dignity.
Sally, same question to you.
My superpower is I can relate to them. I understand how they feel. I have the emotional intelligence to just kind of look at them and see if something is going on, or if they're happy or dissatisfied with something. I'm approachable. I just love people. I really do love people.
And that's just so important. I think you need that primarily because it's not an easy job. We're not talking about fun things all the time. Sometimes we're talking about challenges and tensions. So let me ask you both, what are some of the challenges you face as an ethics ambassador?
My challenges.
I too don't really find this to be a challenge. I actually welcome the role. I think it works well for me. I think it agrees with me. I just incorporated it into my everyday. I think perhaps because we're still working remote, there isn't a need as there was when we were working side by side. So perhaps when we do go back, there could be more challenges. In a remote environment, there really wasn't much of a challenge.
That's great to hear. I mean, what advice would you give someone then that's interested in becoming an ethics ambassador? Beyond obviously that it's something you enjoy, what else would you say to them as they're considering this role?
The support system is really important, that your supervisor be on board. The the toolkit that our Business and Ethics Committee have provided has been wonderful, wonderful. I don't know what else. It's just been, support is really important. As long as you have the support and you believe in what the company stands for when it comes to ethics and compliance, it's a good thing to do both professionally and personally. I've learned so much, not just about the company, but personally. I take the stuff that I learned home and I relate to people better. Just makes you a better person overall.
Yeah,
Love that.
I echo that. I echo that. And also for somebody that's thinking about it or unsure, just remember that your role is just to simply listen and assist the best way you can, and make that person who's seeking your guidance to feel safe. Your role isn't to find the solution. Your role is just, or to get involved. You're just, you know, especially for a delicate situation, you're just there to assist.
Wonderful. And you've both rightly said, you know, the support you get from your own leadership team is critical, and that context is critical. What about the support you might need from the compliance function or the corporate compliance function? What can you tell us about that? Jacqueline, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, first of all, both our senior leadership as well as the ethics and compliance team, they support us. I want to say 1,000,000%, not even 100%. Extremely supportive on this program. They value, they see the value in it, the difference it makes for the company. They appreciate the role we play. Again, there's 120 of us. It's just not just Sonni and I for 14,000 people. And many times we'll have a senior leader on one of our meetings. And there's been many times where we've had some intimate conversations with them, and they're extremely open and extremely engaging. And they've shared that in the past, in their previous employment, that there was no such a thing as a program like this. And then they wish they did, because we would ask them questions like, did you ever have a situation and how did you handle it? And they would, you know, tell us situations that they had, but they had no place to go and nowhere to go. And they saw something that wasn't right, but there wasn't a resource. Whereas now, we have something where we're constantly reinforcing ourselves and making ourselves available.
Sonni?
So what I like the most is I'm not rewarded, like I'm not given an extra bonus. There's no one puts more money in my paycheck. But I get the recognition when the VPs come on and they do their presentation about their line of business. And at the end, they always say, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. And we get that thank you from them. We get it from DC. We get it when we meet with Stacy Simpson and Janice Marin. It's always a thank you. And that recognition goes a long way. And so.
No, I appreciate that. That affirmation that you're doing a good job is great. The recognition publicly can be very powerful too. I agree. We've got a few questions in the chat, so I'm going to turn to those comments and questions. Mary Eugene said, being impartial when it's a situation I'm familiar with or have been through as a challenge, it's where she'd have to be most intentional. And Daniela Gallego follows up on that and says, I'd like to know, what do you do when people approach you to complain about things that have more to do with, say, human resources than with ethics? For example, when there's not good feedback from their boss. How do you do that kind of triage in your function as an ambassador?
Well, what they do sometimes is they just need to vent, and you listen to them vent, and you just trust your gut and decide, is this a like ethical issue, or is this HR? And I direct them to their supervisors, and I tell them, speak to your supervisor, see if you can resolve this with them. If it's an ethical issue, and I always refer them to the 800. Call the 800 and ask them. It's totally anonymous. There's no caller ID on the other side of that phone. Just call, regardless of what it could be. They'll determine better than I, because like Jacqueline said, I'm not the SME. I'm just here to help you, to direct you. Call the helpline and just get better information from them. But when they do complain, I don't know, their workload, because they do complain to me. I usually just direct them. I try to make them understand and see other people's sides. So I just listen. I do listen.
I'm sensing a theme here of a very human-centered approach, which is, I think, what makes you both so good at your job. And human-centered, again, Karsten Tams is a person that teaches me about how that really should be first and foremost. At SNAP, we talk about kindness, but let's talk about kindness to yourselves. You could be a victim of your own success somewhat. If people know to come to you, want to vent with you, how are you handling the time commitment? Like what is it in terms of time commitment for you, for people knowing they can come to you and maybe doing that a lot?
I don't have an issue with time. I give them the time that they need. They usually don't need a lot of time. They just need to know that you're there for them. My commitment to as a values and action, as far as how much time does it take in a month, in a week, I can't tell you. I just feel like I'm always on call.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, like I said before, in the kitchen, an elevator, in the hallway. I do meet with new hires. I do take out time, about 20 minutes with the new hires, and I sit with them just to let them know who I am. So I can't really tell you time. I'm sorry.
Any thoughts on that, Jacqueline, in terms of how frequently employees reach out to you as ethics ambassadors?
So again, I incorporate this role in my day-to-day. Although the interaction hasn't been as much, going back to your previous, actually the chat and how you handled a difficult situation, I actually have a good interaction that I had relating to HR. It was actually a union employee, and she had an issue with her manager. And the unfortunate thing is that this issue had been going on for quite some time. And she was confiding into another coworker, and that other coworker was smart enough not to get involved. At the time, it just so happened that I communicated to my department. I found out that I was asked to be a VIA advisor, and I reached out to her. I reached out to the team to let everybody know, and this coworker had advised her that maybe she should come to me, which she did. I met her away from her desk, took her into the cafeteria, far away from everybody, because I could see how upset she was. She was fearful and upset. She put her story to me, hysterically crying. And I just sat there for an hour, and I gave her the time and the attention that she needed. And I could see how vulnerable she was. And I to see that she was trusting me with this thing that was so sensitive, and I could see that she was hoping I would fix it for her. So I had to kind of explain it to her, and told her that I couldn't and I wouldn't get involved, that I could only help get her in touch with the people that she needed. And I felt awful. There is a human side to this, and you can't get involved. It's like being a nurse or a doctor. It's like you're there to assist and care, but you can't get emotionally involved. You just have to listen. I did obviously, give her the lines of communication that she needed, but to this day, I don't know how far she went with HR, what she did, what the outcome was. That was the part that I played, and that's the part that we play. It could be a very, very shorter interaction. I might have needed to speak to her 3 times. Whatever it is they need, you manage your time. You make time for them, as Sonni had said. You make time for them. That's the role. That's part of the role.
I love that, Jacqueline. I hear you managing in somewhat your own expectations as to, there is a limit to the role that you can play. That said, I would say the impact of the role you play is massive. Again, as I'm an attorney, done employment litigation, I can tell you that many, many things can be near misses because what you're doing, you're helping the company not have to get into that difficult situation. But I would say more importantly, you're helping the human in front of you. As you said, Sonni, they may need to vent, they may need to be heard, they may just need support in the moment. And so I think that's a great message for the ambassadors out there, that even though it may feel frustrating at times, that you can only do so much, actually what you're doing is critical. So thank you. Let me say thank you for that as well. Alyssa says, sounds like empathy and listening skills are two essential qualities that ambassadors share. And Daniela asks a question, how are you presented to the community as ethics ambassadors? Is there a public communication of your role? Is it communicated by email? And I'm going to add a little bit to that. And how are you perceived by your teams as ethics ambassadors? So let me start with you, Sonni, on that.
BEC provides you with a toolkit of how you can present yourself when you become a VIA. They give you a cling, which I had on the side of my desk. They give you gifts that you can give people when you do talk to them. So that's how I present myself. When I first meet them, I tell them who I am, but I don't say it over and over again. I never say it again. I say it once, and that's it. And after that, I develop the relationship with them. So that's how they know me. I talk to them. I let them know that they can come to me with anything. They have my cell number. I tell them, again, the 800. I just let them know that they're important, that what they do is important, how they feel when they're at work, because it is 8 hours that you're there. It's a big chunk of your day. You have to feel comfortable. You have to feel safe. You have to feel respected. It's a team. We work together. We have to just respect each other and trust. So that's how they see me.
Love that. Would you like to add anything, Jacqueline, on that one?
You know, the company is always reinforcing these programs that we have. And I mean, for me, I can only speak for myself that, you know, my role as the VIA is I'm really communicating to my department, which is about 50-ish people. However, on my signature, on every email, it'll explain who I am. I'm a VIA advisor, the phone number, the hotline. And it's a constant reinforcement. So anybody that actually comes into kind of communication with me electronically can see that I'm part of this bigger team. And the beauty of it is you don't necessarily need to go to a VIA department. So if somebody works in my department, they might find it to be uncomfortable to come to me because maybe they're too close to me. They can go to somebody else, and that's the nice thing about it, that we're organized in a way that you can reach out to anybody for support and help.
I love that. Okay, well, I'm sadly at time, so I'm going to have to pass over to Eve. But I wanted to, just to close, ask you in one or two words, what are the benefits to you for being an ambassador as we close?
It's a growth opportunity. It really is. You not only get to know your peers, but you get to know middle management, upper management. It's personally, I have enjoyed it.
Thank you, Sonni. Jacqueline?
And I think it's made me a better person, a better coworker, probably a better friend, and it's made me more aware. I take this role really seriously, and I think especially during COVID, you know, when we were working remote and when I'm not seeing my coworkers anymore, I had already established my role and the role that I play with my department. And my communications, I think the benefit here especially, my communications probably meant more to them in this past 2-year period when people were probably having difficulties coping, and I probably made a much bigger difference. And that I feel is really the benefit. I think who knew, but I think these things that we did established a really great foundation for them.
Wow, thank you both so much, not only for what you do, but how you do it. You're clearly making a difference and an impact, and we appreciate you. So thank you. Over to Eve.